Am I the asshole for saying my parents disowning me was the reason I married my wife? My wife Eileen 33F and I 30M have been happily married for several years. Eileen is a no-nonsense, wise person that I can trust with my life. I wouldn't have thought to marry her if my parents hadn't disowned me. My parents have generational wealth, but my father believed in working hard for your money. I wasn't a good student and I got bad grades, skipped class, and got into trouble a few times. My parents sent me abroad for college because I would probably not pass the college entrance exam. All I cared about then was hanging with my friends and having fun. I scraped through college, but my father was furious that I did not graduate on time. He disowned me and I was cut off from family money. I had known Eileen in college. She was very smart and dedicated. She wanted to become a doctor. She also had an obvious crush on me. I knew that I would run out of money and my life would be rough if I didn't have someone to keep me in check. So I asked out Eileen and in a couple of years we were married. I didn't see her often because of her long hours as an intern and then a resident and then a full doctor, but I tried to be the best husband I could. My parents recently contacted me again. My father had a heart attack and it scared him into reaching out. We had a family dinner. My parents commented on Eileen as my choice of partner. She's a doctor in a prestigious specialty, which made her more attractive as a daughter-in-law. They commented that she was nothing like the trashy girls I used to date that they had to scare off, and asked what made me change my type. I said that them disowning me was the reason I married Eileen. That was the wrong thing to say. Everyone got quiet at dinner and were clearly uncomfortable. I asked Eileen if she knew why, and she said it might be because my disownment was a touchy subject. She also seems a little off, so I'm not sure what I did. Am I the asshole? I love my wife more than anyone. I will ask her why she is off when she is free. Next story. Am I the asshole for kicking my daughter out of my house for being pregnant? I for 5F have a 27-year-old daughter. She has 6 kids between the ages 10 to 11 months. There are 3 different fathers. She receives child support from 2 of them, and she is still with the 3rd one, and they have been for 5 years. My daughter works part-time, and her fiancé is a chef full-time. They have lived with us for the past year and a half due to getting evicted from their last home. The kids and them have our upstairs bedrooms. There's 2, but that's still crowded for 6 children. They're constantly asking me for help with phone bills. My husband and I have asked for no rent, so they'd be able to save money to get a home, which I do not believe they were doing. I have put up with loud voices throughout all hours, and waking up at different hours to cater to children because I love my grandchildren. I never complained to my daughter because I believe family is very important. It's just that my children are all grown up. My youngest moved out 4 years ago, and my husband and I had hopes to remodel. We didn't expect them to be living here this long. On Christmas Eve, my daughter gathered us all around and announced they were pregnant with baby number 7. Everyone was all excited, but I felt dread. That would mean another child in our house with not much room. I looked over at my husband and could tell he felt the same. We discussed later and decided we were going to have to ask them to move out. Last night at dinner I brought it up to my daughter and her boyfriend, and we told them. They have 2 months to find a place because we cannot have another child here. My daughter started crying, saying she couldn't believe I'd throw her to the streets for having a baby, that this was completely unfair and not enough time. I told her I was sorry, it was painful for me as well, but these living conditioners were impossible. She demanded I give her more time or she'd go to the courts, and I told her news flash. The courts only gives you 30 days. She then said my grandchildren were going to be homeless because I was selfish. She made a Facebook post asking for rooms too. Rent because she's pregnant and has nowhere to go and her family don't give a shit about her. Am I the asshole? Next story. AITA for telling my dad he's just being dramatic when my stepmom died. AITA for telling my dad he's just being dramatic when my stepmom died. Here's the story. When I to 8F was 11. My mom and dad divorced. After they divorced, my mom left me with our dad and never wanted to see me. My dad met a girl from another country, and we moved there because moving in our country would make my stepmom's son needs to learn another language. But I spoke English well, so me and my dad moved to the States. After they married, it was a lot of change, so I started becoming more and more sad. Mom not wanting me anymore, moving to another country, new school. Language I'm not used to speaking, stepbrother and stepmom, dad becoming more like stepmom. So I became depressed. I felt hopeless because I didn't have friends. And my dad likes my stepbrother and never really paid any attention to me. He always told me I was being dramatic when I told him anything about my depression. But then when I never tell him anything, he worries so now. A week ago my stepmom got into a car accident and died in the hospital. When my dad was acting sad around me, I told him he's just being dramatic and it's no big deal. My stepbrother then told me I was being too harsh on my dad. So am I the asshole? Next story. The time I stabbed 2 people. You'll probably won't believe this, but this happened in 2002. A month prior to the incident, a couple of guys, Sean 17 and Henry 19, walked into a Popeye's chicken where a female friend, 17 of mine, 17, worked and started fucking with her. They were calling her a dumb bitch and saying they were going to rape her like she deserves and all sorts of other shit. She told me about it the next day in 8th period criminal justice class. She had gotten in a fight with a girl about a week prior and Sean was that girl's boyfriend. I knew Sean had a class 2 doors down from the class we were in and I had a problem with dudes messing with girls like that, no matter the circumstances. I asked the teacher if I could go to the bathroom and I walked down to his classroom. I opened the door and looked right at him and told him he's a bitch and he knows where to find me if he's got a problem. Everyone knew where to find me after school. I was the dude everyone came to for drugs. A huge group of us were hanging out in our usual spot when they rolled up. 4 of them got out of the car and 1 had a baseball bat. I recognized Sean and Henry, but I didn't know the other 2. They started walking towards me and we all stood up and started grabbing weapons. They were outnumbered like 4 to 1. They stopped about 10 feet from me. Sean called me a pussy and said he'd catch me slippin' when I didn't have anyone to protect me. They jumped back in the car and took off. Around a month or so later, I was walking with my girlfriend and her friend down a busy street outside her neighborhood. We were walking on the sidewalk in front of a strip center parking lot. All of a sudden, a blue sedan pulled up into the parking lot entrance about 15 feet in front of us and 4 dudes got out. I recognized Sean and Henry, so I told the girls to run to the Hollywood Video to call my girls' mom to come get them. The girls ran off as the 4 guys approached me. Sean got to me first, he shoved me and I took a couple steps back. The rest of the guys surrounded me. Henry was on my right and Sean directly in front of me. I grabbed a lock blade knife out of my hoodie pocket, just as Henry landed a punch to my right cheek and knocked my glasses off. I saw red, I popped the blade out and lunged at Henry. I sunk my knife into his right side just above the hip. I got him deep. Sean punched me in the side of the head directly above my left ear. I twisted my knife as I pulled it out of Henry's side, shoved him with my free hand and went for Sean. I took another hit to the back of the head as I swung my arm up to stab Sean in the stomach. I took another hit from the guy on my left as Sean put his hand out to block. My knife went into his palm and came out the other side of his hand. I pulled my hand back and tried to get him in the belly again, but he blocked and I stabbed through his hand a second time. Round then, they all realized Henry was hurt bad and the other 2 guys went to help him. I pulled back and stabbed for a 3rd time. I got Sean in the hand again. He staggered back and turned and ran to the car. Henry and the other 2 guys were already getting in. They sped off through the parking lot and I grabbed my glasses off the ground. I walked over to the Hollywood Video just as my girlfriend's mom was pulling up.